With the introduction of Rappa, we now have access to not only a Hunt and Destruction break character, but also a Year Edition one. So, if we compare Firefly to Rappa, who offers the better in-game experience? Should we put Boothill as a part of this conversation? In my opinion, there's absolutely no reason to, because he's just hands down the most fun character to play with, so I'm probably going to be a little bit biased if we had this be a three-way match. So to pinpoint the differences and similarities of Firefly and Rappa, what we're going to do is go through 3 separate runs, identical runs, using the same teams, same relics, with the only difference being that one is a female mech robot abomination. Well, not abomination, but Mech Abomination, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but then the other one is going to be the Galaxy Ranger in Rappa. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, join the Discord, and let's compare Firefly and Rappa. Now, if we look at one of the most important categories to compare these two, that would be their toughness reduction, or in other words, how much toughness they can deal to their enemies. If we look numerically just at the enhanced skill from Firefly versus the enhanced basic from Rappa, Firefly is going to do 20 toughness to the main target and 10 to the adjacents, whereas the 3-part hit from Rappa is going to go 10 to the main and then 5 to the adjacents twice, and the third one is going to be 5 to every enemy, but it can go up to 15 if you have 10 stacks of her talent. So just straight up with no talent versus imaginary weakness, we can actually get 25 toughness versus one enemy versus the 20 that we can get from Firefly. Now both of these characters get 50% extra weakness break efficiency when they use their ultimate, so they're even there. If we put Ranmei in the equation, that's going to bump it up to 100, so still we get even reduction. Now when it comes to being able to deal that toughness to off-element enemies, that is where the difference comes, because Firefly has an implant. She can implant fire on the main target, and usually the side enemy, even if they don't have fire, in Pure Fiction, if you have Ranmei, you can still break, so that's no issue. The real problem that we run into, however, is when we face non-imaginary weak enemies with Rappa, her toughness reduction kind of falls off a cliff because it's only 50% of the normal. Firefly, in comparison, is actually 55% of the toughness reduction. So it is interesting how they decided to not give Rappa implant and then also reduce the amount of toughness she can deal to off-element enemies. Now the last thing to touch on before we move into Apocalyptic Shadow is their ability to be played sustainless. When looking at Rappa, unfortunately, there's no survivability aspect to her kit. When looking at Firefly, we not only get effect res when entering her state, but there is a consistent amount of healing coming from her skill, a considerable amount of HP sap coming from her normal skill, which, to be honest, I still don't know what the reason is. There's nothing about her kit that is HP related. In my opinion, the only reason they did that is just so Lingsha can get a free trigger of the bunny, which is a cool interaction. However, that seems to be the only interaction. Now that's it for Pure Fiction. Clearly, Rappa was the victor, although that was to be expected. She's Year Edition. It would be quite depressing and unfortunate if she somehow lost to Firefly in this mode. However, they were both able to achieve 40k points on this side. Cough cough, Lingsha. We were able to get 40k in 2 cycles with Rappa, and then with the Firefly team it ended up taking 3.5, but we were still able to do it. So, now let's get into Apocalyptic Shadow to see how these two perform when they're more focused only towards bosses. Now in modes like Apocalyptic Shadow, where toughness reduction is the name of the game, these two actually perform quite similar, with Firefly outperforming when we're not on element because her implant is just massive for enemies that don't have fire. But when it comes to pure damage, interestingly enough, on our first attack versus Broken Kafka, with only 2 stacks of Rappa's talent available out of 10, we're actually able to hit about 20% higher in terms of single target damage when comparing Firefly, which is quite interesting. It just goes to show that Rappa's damage is actually out of this world. It really is just whether you can put her on a side that favors her with imaginary weakness, because that is where she suffers. Only having 50% of your toughness reduction available to you when you're not facing imaginary enemies means that the teammates you decide to pick are very, very important when going into battle. However, unfortunately, with Super Break teams, we really don't have too many options, because the only 2 sustains that are the best in Super Break teams are both Fire And Rappa being imaginary is the same as Harmony Trailblazer. So unless we get another Super Break support in the future, then these team options that we have for element typings are going to be a little bit limited. Now, something that we haven't talked about yet is ultimate uptime, because when looking at Firefly, I usually end up running into the situation where once I exit combustion, if I'm not using quid pro quo on Gallagher or Lingsha, I can't get back into combustion with only one skill. It usually ends up taking another basic to get there, or if I get very lucky with hits and kills, then maybe I can get into the ultimate immediately. Now, when Rappa is outside of her ultimate state, the skill I find is a little bit more valuable than the skill from Firefly, although they're both pretty similar. Their main benefit here is that Rappa can actually hold her ultimate if she wants to, because her advance isn't actually an advance, it's just a free turn. Firefly is the one with the 100% action advance, so it makes the rotations a little bit more strict with Firefly, whereas Rappa is a little bit more flexible, however you don't want to get hit and overcap on energy. So that's it for Apocalyptic Shadow. Both characters did relatively even, with Rappa being able to scrape by with about 30 more points than Firefly. However, Firefly is probably going to be a little bit more flexible in non-imaginary, non-fire situations, so I want to say they're just about even, with a little bit of more performance in Rappa if you're on element, however, a little bit more flexibility in Firefly's side for the different types and sides you can go against. Now for the MOC comparison, because this is my favorite game mode, let's just do both full-length runs at the end of this video to finish it off. So for the initial Firefly side, this is going to be very fun because of the exo toughness buff that we've got this MOC. It makes it just deal so much more damage because we can re-trigger those big breaks. Not only Ron May's break, but also Firefly's break, which is really, really good. So we're going to go ahead and get a couple of buffs here. Lingsha being our sub DPS makes it so we do want her to be buffed, interestingly enough. A blast, and here we go. So one skill into combustion, and let's see what we can do. Ooh, 405 bunny. That's what I was talking about with that instant interaction between Lingsha and the first skill of Firefly. Is very, very good. So right here we're sitting at 516 break effect versus 3 targets. 2 breaks triggered 844, pretty damn good. So here we can go ahead and get into the next Firefly turn. With E0 Firefly, the skill points is a really big issue. I personally find using E1 Firefly to be very similar to using E0 Rappa. So having to use skill points for the enhanced skill is absolutely terrible. Now, we went ahead and used the ultimate from Lingsha to completely destroy their toughness bars and get them 50% health before we even get our first attack. So this should be a one-shot. Go ahead and up our break effect too because the Watchmaker buff ran out. Only 1 extra break triggered right now, but 103 million damage. Maths. 1.3 million or 1.03. Whatever. There we go. The effect res from Firefly actually came in handy. That almost never happens, to be honest. So that is one massive benefit of the Fly. Yeah, E0 Firefly really screws up the skill point economy of a Lingsha team. Very, very badly, I must say. Gallagher probably solves that issue because just the sheer amount of skill points he gathers, but... So, let's see what this does. 2 break. Not on the main target, but 260. Not terrible. Not terrible at all. $210,000 damage from our main character. Pretty crazy to see, to be honest. And Lingsha, go ahead and break that thing so we don't have to take any more damage. Beautiful. Lingsha is almost the MVP of this, to be honest. Kind of crazy. I did just E1 Lingsha on my main account. I've got to say, unbelievable. So good. The final attack. We don't have the buff from Lingsha's ultimate, but we can still see how much it does. No breaks, only super break and re-trigger 760. On to Rappa. Let's see how she does. On our graffiti surfboard once again. Still one of my favorite entering battle animations so far. Now, here we're going to go ahead and do the same rotation as the first side. try to keep things as similar as possible. As soon as I said that, we're not ulting with Trailblazer and Ron May, but it's fine, because now we get to keep the Watchmaker on Rappa for 1 extra turn, which it did run out the last fight with Firefly when she entered the second wave. But we did have it up, so it didn't make a difference. But anyways, here we're going to go ahead and go into the ultimate with Rappa versus 5 targets. 6 points of the ninja tech will turn to 10 once we break these 2 elites. And let's see what we do. 1.3 million. Pretty damn good. Okay, it's already almost dead. Pretty good. 1 attack here. We got the ultimate from Linksha, which is perfect. Oh, I guess it's surviving. We do want to kill it before Linksha's attack, or before Rappa's attack, so we don't waste the action advance. And same thing, pop the ultimate now. Pretty good. Because of the technique from Firefly, we were actually able to break immediately with Linksha. So now it is a little bit later, but that's still a ton of damage with the first Linksha attack. That toughness reduction on the 3rd hit goes crazy if you can actually build up those points. Now here, hopefully we can clean this up without needing another Linksha attack. That would be ideal, and I think we're good. Beautiful. Let's see who gets taken here. Ideally Linksha or Trailblazer. Okay, doesn't really matter whatsoever. We should still be good. So now this is going to be no damage, but let's see how much toughness it does. Really, really good toughness on the left and the right, although the 50% reduction on the main enemy does suck a little bit, but we're still able to break. Just keep that middle enemy alive. That way it is the same comparison versus the final attack of Firefly versus now the final attack of Linksha. Or Rappa, and because we did not use the ultimate on Linksha, we don't have the buff from her light cone, so this should be identical situation to Firefly's final attack. Well, I'm not sure if the middle one was able to be broken or not, so that would be the only difference if there was. We're sitting at 450 break effect with max points. So 10 points of the ninja tech. Let's see what we do. No break, so it shouldn't be too crazy, but pretty good. Not terrible, not terrible. Now for the builds, here on Firefly, 270 break effect, 159 speed, her light cone, 4-piece cavalry, 2-piece forge. Rappa was identical, everything was the same. I actually forgot to pre-record it, so I don't feel like going back. Just know that everything is identical, Firefly to Rappa. Now here, Trailblazer was on Memories of the Past, 4-piece watchmaker, 2-piece forge. It does work out quite nicely. Energy regen, just because, I don't know, I like mixing up energy regen and break effect sometimes. Now, as for Ron May, her light cone, 4-piece messenger, just mainly because I was trying to get 3,700 points in Apocalyptic Shadow. There really isn't any other reason than that. And as for Linksha, was 161 crazy DPS, 165 break effect, although that is a little bit low because it is on the energy regeneration rope, although I do like energy regeneration rope better than break effect rope for Linksha. And that was everything we had. So let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the comparison between Linksha and Rappa? If you guys didn't have either, which one would you like? Now that I'm assuming a lot of you guys are stuck into Firefly, it probably brings the value of Rappa down significantly. However, I like both of these characters an even amount. Just kidding. I don't. The answer is Rappa. I like Rappa so much more. Rappa is unbelievably more fun than Firefly. Firefly, I find that if I put it in auto, sometimes I achieve the same results as playing myself, which is very, very sad. But Linksha, however, takes a little bit, or not takes more, but has a little bit more skill expression that can be used because you can time your ultimates now a little bit differently. You don't have to use it immediately because then you're going to waste the action advance from a Firefly. The choice between where you want to put your first 2 hits actually does impact lots of things, so that is something to keep an eye on in the future for how to optimize Rappa gameplay. But that's it. So thanks for watching once again. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button as well. I haven't said that in very many videos, but the Discord is in the description. You guys should definitely join that. That would be A1 Wagyu. Wonderful. Or A5 Wagyu. Whatever. It doesn't matter. You guys get the point. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.